You're watching the Packers Report. Mitchell Renz from Chat Sports, ready to walk you through the latest news and rumors around the Green Bay Packers. Before I get into today's show, we're a brand new YouTube channel here, and with training camp just around the corner, there's going to be a lot of news, rumors, tons of updates that you all need to be able to say that, you know what, I know everything going on around my favorite team. So if you like the Packers, if you like football, please look underneath this video, takes 2 seconds, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. Devin Funchess, is he on his way out from the Green Bay Packers? That's what we're talking about here on today's show. ESPN decided to write an article around 32 players that could potentially be cut this upcoming offseason. And what they essentially did was they wanted to find either it was somebody who was drafted, obviously, or a former, or I guess a veteran, if you will, that could potentially be on their way out right before training camp gets started. If Green Bay decides to move on from Funchess, it's going to save them $1.2 million. He decided to opt out this past season due to COVID, but he's been battling with cheaper, younger players for this last wide receiver roster spot, because if I'm Green Bay, I'd probably keep maybe 6 receivers, and that's where Funchess is, like right there on that roster bubble. So here's what ESPN had to say on keeping Devin Funchess. Man, he looks the part when he walks onto the practice field. Tall, 6'4", well-built, 225 pounds, and confident. But he has played only one regular season game the past 2 years. He broke his collarbone in 2019 opener for the Colts and missed the rest of the season, then was a COVID-19 opt-out last year. He skipped OTAs this spring and then dropped out from one of the 3 minicamp practices after getting banged up. Coach Matt LaFleur made it sound like Funchess is not a sure thing, saying there is a lot to learn there, and he's got to continue to grind over the summer so he can put his best foot forward come training camp. In terms of what Funchess has done throughout his entire career, 41 games. I go back to the days remembering him with Cam Newton in the Carolina Panthers offense, but 164 grabs, 2,265 yards. You see the average there at 13.8, but 21 touchdowns. And if you were to look at Funchess, you'd be like, all right, this guy's 27 years old. He's a big body. I used to kind of always joke around, right, when he was first starting to come out of Michigan, that he might never be a good wide receiver, but maybe he has an opportunity to transition to tight end. And not that Green Bay needs a tight end. Tanya did a hell of a job this past season, but that could be an opportunity for Funchess to go ahead and, see another opportunity maybe with the Packers or with another NFL team. But one of the biggest indicators for me was like when you look at this Green Bay Packers wide receiver depth chart, obviously Devontae Adams, he ain't going anywhere, right? Then you got MBS as your wide receiver 2, Allen Lazard as your 3. They drafted Amari Rodgers out of Clemson this past year of the draft. And then it kind of comes down to, all right, who's going to have that other spot? Do they give it to Funchess, who is a bigger outside receiver? Do you go with a St. Brown, who's, out of Notre Dame, good athlete, but still pretty unproven? Do you go with Taylor Winfrey? I mean, you could go just so many different ways here. The player that I'm going to hit on the head in terms of being a cheaper option, it is Juwan Winfrey. Now, he might not be the athlete or in terms of size that Funchess is, but he's still 6'3", 215 pounds, and guess what? He's a little bit cheaper, and he's younger. If you want to go another route, you can go Malik Taylor here, who's not quite as big as those other 2 guys, but 6'2", 216 pounds. The one thing that Funchess is never going to be able to give you that Taylor and James can give you, special teams, Juwan Winfrey, that can give you is special teams ability. And when it really comes down to those final roster spots, that can be the difference between making a team and not making a team. So if you had to pick one of these players right here, who would you end up keeping, right? If you could only keep, let's say, 5, 6 receivers and your final roster spot came down either Malik Taylor, type MT, Juwan Winfrey, type JW, or you're going to go Devin Funchess, type DF. I'm actually going to go ahead and type my JW for Juwan Winfrey simply because of special teams, athletic ability. But honestly, if they decide to not keep any 3 of these players, that honestly wouldn't surprise me either.